time with.
If you just do it, it'll turn out okay. And today I am with the musician known as Brady Adams.
Hi. Hi.
Hi.
Hey, what's happening?
That's pretty good. Why don't you introduce yourself to those who may not know who you are?
Well, hey, I'm Brady from Crooked Pointer, which used to be Brady and the Bazookas, but I had to kill Brady and the Bazookas coming out of the pandemic. I lived in Vandalia forever and then moved. So now I live in just outside of Nashville in the middle of nowhere. So yeah, that's me. I'm the guitar player singer from Crooked Pointer, the only rockabilly band on this farm.
Nice. So you're in Nashville, Tennessee now?
Yeah, I live north of Nashville by, I don't know, probably about a half hour. It takes me 30 minutes to get to my first stoplight.
It takes me like about 10 minutes by foot to get my first stoplight.
Yeah, right. Yeah, most people live around humans. So we've got chickens and a dog. That's,
Cool. So you perform at the opera yet?
Oh, yeah. I'm going to quote one of my favorite singers, Evan Felker. Well, I haven't made the opera yet, but hey, no sweat. George Thorogood's playing at the Opry in May. And My Chemical Romance added a Nashville date in August. So I'm going to try to catch both of those shows.
Cool.
It'll be glorious.
Nice. But well, I'm sure pretty soon it won't be long till you're performing there.
Yeah, well, I don't think they want me at the Opry. And I don't think any rockabilly guy has ever had the big enough fan base to play at what arena are they playing? I don't know. And I went up to Ohio to see the Stray Cats back in 2019. They played at what's that place in Huber Heights? Rose Pavilion or something?
Maybe.
Phrase Pavilion.
I really don't know. I'm not that big on the music scene, really, honestly.
It was only like a 4,000 person pavilion, and these are the Stray Cats doing their 40th anniversary tour, and it was pretty full. It wasn't sold out. I was really amazed that not everybody and their brother went out there, but rockabilly is just not a real. It's everybody says, oh, it's super niche. You're never going to find a huge fan base and everything's terrible. Well, the same year that Stray Cats 40 came out, Tool came out with their album, right? And I think Stray Cats 40 hit number one like for a day. And Tool, that album was talked about for months. And so yeah, being a rockabilly, life's real hard for a rock and roll man.
So what is rockabilly?
So you take, I think it was 54. Elvis was in Sun Studios and they punched the record button on That's All Right, Mama. And it was, it's country, it's jazz, it's rock and roll, but with some swing, right? So rockabilly has to have some swing to it. I threw my phone over so it wouldn't interfere.
Okay, so kind of like a blender of all kind of music put together.
Yeah, it is. So when you think of rock and roll, right? When you think of country, sure. When you think of rockabilly, and this rockabilly version is coming from like a Daryl Hyam style, a guy over in England who just nails the rockabilly everything. But it's kind of you got swing.
Yeah.
It's got to have that swing to make it a good rockabilly sort of style. Now, I did a bunch of research on, obviously every rockabilly guy does, but you start looking at guitars and sounds and who did what and blah blah blah. And I feel really bad. I was watching Smash Adams on this one, or on when Bradley was doing his, and he was such a huge fan of the Beatles, right?
Yeah.
Well, I base Crooked Pointer on what if the British invasion never happened, and all of the rock and roll rockabilly guys didn't die or, went away.
Yeah. So they like the British, the Beatles and stuff overpowered the rockabilly sound. They came over.
Yeah. So Elvis goes off to Germany during the Korean War at some point in time. Eddie Cochran died. Buddy Holly and Richie Valens and the Big Bopper die. At some point in time, Carl Perkins gets in a big car wreck. And that was he was supposed to perform Blue Suede Shoes instead of Elvis on that show, but got a car wreck. His brother died. I think Bill Haley in the comments. So Bill Haley he got some health problems and kind of fell out of the limelight. And then he died. Jerry Lee Lewis marries his 14-year-old cousin, so nobody wanted anything to do with him anymore. Wow. And then when Eddie Cochran died, he was with Gene Vincent I think it was in England. And so that kind of messed him up for a while. So it was just all of those early rock and roll rockabilly guys that it just, the universe just had it out for them. But what if the Beatles never happened? What if the entire British invasion never happened and we just had Americans writing the same kind of rock and roll? You go back to, I gotta change guitars for this one. No, I don't. So you go back to Bill Haley in the comments, Rock the Joint or the Rock Around the Clock guitar solo, right? Right, that whole business, like that guitar solo is so iconic. And it's amazing. Where were the Beatles guitar solos like that? Where are the rest of the 60s guitar solos that were as iconic as what was happening 10 years prior?
So what did the Beatles bring over then? What kind of music did they bring over that overthrew the rockabilly before?
Well, I'd say that Beatles music in general, and I'm not putting down any Beatles fans. I'm not putting down any of the Beatles. I'm not putting down anything that those guys accomplished. But I think through the course of what they did, the Beatles brought over, when Elvis wasn't larger than life Elvis anymore, you had the Beatles bringing over, I think, larger than life pop sounds and pop music. And they really, I think, the Beatles and I don't know, Jay-Z were probably all the same sort of icons, just in different eras, right?
Kind of like the 70s band that we had over here. The Monkees was the American form of the Beatles.
Yeah, but they were, it was the TV show, and Neil Diamond wrote most of their songs, and they were just there as a. They were there as a pop icon. I have nothing wrong with pop icons.
But again, that was from the influence of the Beatles bringing over, right?
Yeah. But if you go back to those like Elvis guys, and you go back to Gene Vincent, Eddie Cochran, Johnny Burnett,
the original rock and roll grandfathers.
Yeah, all of those guys, all the Sun Records guys, when Johnny Cash was on meth or whatever he did. Whatever drugs that Johnny Cash was on. Those guys were like the fringes of society punk rock dudes, people losing their minds when Elvis is shaking their hips.
You can't tell that on TV. That's too.
Yeah. And you had folks that were looking at the lyrics for Gene Vincent's Bebop-A-Lula, and the lyrics, Bebop-A-Lula, she's my baby. Bebop-A-Lula, I don't mean maybe. She's My Baby Doll, and all his lyrics were on, right? They were like reading his lyrics on television. Like, what is this nonsense?
Of course, nowadays those lyrics would be like PG, like PG or something like that, or G even.
Yeah. And Train Kept a Rolling. My goodness, Johnny Burnett releases Train Kept a Rolling, and that song's about a dude that had a one night stand on a Amtrak or whatever, and then leaves.
Yeah, I know. He was he was still alive. My dad's favorite singer of that era was like Johnny Horton.
Yeah, Johnny Horton. Now he had a lot of. He moved up to the Northwest, I think. Eventually, his voice was amazing. He had a lot of like patriotic songs and kind of went a different era, not era, but a different direction.
Yeah.
But he did have some songs that were, I mean, it could be considered kind of racy, I guess. In fact, I think Reverend Horton Heat actually paid tribute to Johnny Horton when Jim Heath named his band, because Johnny Horton's music was amazing. It was great stuff. So what happens if we stop holding on to, big orange Gretsch guitars, right? What happens if we stop holding on to that and we stop holding on to all the way things are and say, well, what if it didn't happen that way? How can we make it if the Beatles didn't happen and Black Sabbath didn't happen and Def Leppard and Zeppelin and The Who and all of those other groups? What if that didn't happen, and what if that didn't influence us in our songwriting and in our taste? I think taste is another thing too, because your taste is formed from what you hear, right? So here's a great example of that. Okay. If we're going to talk about guitar things, can I get musical nerdy on you for just a second?
Sure.
Okay. So when you look at scales, the sixth, right? So I like to use sixth chords and the sixth note in a lot of different things. So the sixth isn't a thing that you hear a lot in music. A lot of times you hear when you make a melody or you hear a melody, they take the pentatonic scale and then you remove another note from it. So you have like 4 notes that make up most of your melodies. And a lot of your guitar solos, hang on. I'm sure I did that on purpose. It's that pentatonic sort of business. But for me, when I guitar solo, first major and minor, you got to mix them. So here's the minor. You go to that major. And here's that like rockabilly thing that nobody uses that anymore. I'm sure Brian Setzer uses it a bunch. But so that's, those kind of note selections, those kind of melody creations, and all of that other stuff, right? Sticking to the 1-4-5 chord. Jeez. As opposed to the modern writers, right? The 1-5-6-4 or whatever chord progression. So there's definitely some nerdy music thought that goes into how you pull away from the Beatles and Zeppelin and The Who. And I'm not putting any of the Brits down. I think all of the British Invasion music was amazing. And those guys did a lot of great things. I just don't want to do it.
Cool. So would there be a way to combine that with what they did or not? Or is that two separate eras now can ever meet again? Yeah,
I'm sure that because 40,000 songs or 50,000 songs get uploaded to the internet every day, somebody is probably, following a combination of their influences. But I can tell you with 100% accuracy that both, Zeppelin and the Beatles were heavily influenced by all of the early American music. If you go back and look at some early Zeppelin's concert footage, they're playing Eddie Cochran songs. And if you go back and look at some of the early Beatles albums, they idolized Carl Perkins. And eventually they brought Carl Perkins over to England and they covered a bunch of his songs on albums. So I know that guys were doing it, but their influences were record shops, and they would get all the American music from their record shops. They'd listen to it and they go, well, we really like this, but we want to make it more what we want to make it.
Okay.
That's cool. So yeah, my headspace is, where do I make different music different? Same music different, still trying to keep it rock and roll.
So who were your influences then?
Well, back in high school, everybody there, I felt like, wanted to hear, and this is only in the 90s, it's far-fetched to think that Zeppelin and the Grateful Dead and the Doors were still a big deal, but that stuff was still played on the modern rock stations. Grunge was really kind of starting to take hold in Dayton area at that point in time, but a lot of folks that, the bands that I played with, we all played the regular old classic rock stuff. Until one day I was flipping through MTV and I saw Brian Setzer playing, Stray Cats tunes, and he played it perfectly clean on a perfectly clean guitar in a perfect manner. I was like, my God, how does this? I call up all my buddies and I'm like, yo, turn on an MTV and watch this. This is what we should do. And they all basically told me, no, we don't want to do that at all. So go back to playing. Right.
And so this is back when MTV still had music videos on it.
Yeah, when MTV actually stood for music.
And back when I say this, but back when MTV had music on it, and the History Channel actually had history on it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, when TLC was actually the Learning Channel, and it wasn't like Say Yes to the Dress. Like, you turn on TLC, it was something totally different. Well, I guess they got Dr. Pimple Popper on there now on TLC, which is kind of weird.
And gross.
Yeah.
I saw some. I see some rare clips on YouTube. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. You ever
thinking
you
out
scroll through your phone late at night and you're like, you go to like Facebook videos or you're on TikTok or whatever, because who doesn't take their talk these days?
Watch somebody cut off a pimple with a knife.
Oh yeah, yeah. You get to that video and you're like, what is that? Oh God, no! And it won't go away, and then you can't sleep for another 3 days, and you wind up with bags under your eyes, and you're in the fetal position calling your therapist. It's a good time.
So you said you used to live in this area?
Yeah, yeah.
When did you graduate?
97.
Oh, 1 year before me.
Oh, okay.
That's my name.
Yeah. So
were you in choir at all, or not? There's a band or choir?
I was in marching band, but since the rules don't apply to me, you've got to. That's why I shared that meme on one of the groups. Be ungovernable. I was the bass player in the marching band, and
like guitar bass or like
no, guitar bass.
Okay,
I didn't play like the brassophone or the Sousa trumpet or whatever you call it. We went to Disney for one of our senior band trips, and everybody's like marching around Disney, and I'm being a rebel and not doing it because I didn't do that. So I didn't even bring a band uniform to Disney. So instead, I just kind of meandered around the park, trying to listen for the band and stay away from them. Yeah.
Did you get in trouble for ditching the school trip?
Right. Yeah, I'll go on the school trip, but I'm not playing in a marching thing. So that was fun.
Cool. So were you ever in the air show parade then?
No, I didn't do any parades.
I
didn't do any of that stuff. because I'm way too cool to go marching around in a parade.
Obviously.
Yeah, I don't do that. I don't do that.
I might have seen you then, but I guess I didn't see you then because I went to every parade until I graduated high school to watch.
Oh, nice. Yeah, and you went to Butler too?
Yeah. 1 year behind you, obviously. Apparently.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Of course, I went to TTC my last 2 years.
So then my last year, you wouldn't have been there.
Not. Yeah. I would. Your senior year, I would have been at CTC already.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time with my head down not paying attention to other folks. And I guess I've kind of always been that way, It's super duper helpful to not pay attention so much so to what other folks are doing. Unless it's in a good way, So like one of my buddies, Jared Petty's, just had a big show with Hillbilly Casino and Reverend Horton Heat out in Charleston. And he was on a couple of the Rockabilly Qs. He won number 2. His band, Jared Petty's and the Headliners, won number 2 on a Rockabilly Rumble with Slim Jim Phantom. And so he's out there in the world really kicking the backside. He's going to be Rockabilly royalty sometime by next year, I'm sure. Well, while this guy's out doing that, I was moving from Savannah to Nashville because my wife wanted to be closer to her family. And, instead of sitting around kicking rocks and going, well, everything sucks for me, I got to move away from the beach. I just called him up and was like, man, Jared, I'm so proud of to say that, hey, man, we hung out together in the air. He was in the Army. I was in the Air Force. We were on the same deployments together. And I was really excited that he did all that stuff. And I think that's a very positive thing to do, is to find folks that are cool and absolutely support what they're doing and mean it wholeheartedly. I know that was a roundabout way to say that, but yeah, I don't really pay attention to what other folks are doing.
Yeah.
So no, as if I don't remember anything.
Well, I didn't pay attention to upperclassmen anyways, or lowerclassmen. I usually hang out my own grade people, so I probably wouldn't notice you anyways unless you stood out or something.
Yeah, no, probably not. I had a sweet mullet.
Nice. I was the kid that got bullied a lot in school.
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't even hear that one. I thought I did. I have to get a little bit closer.
I said I was the kid that got bullied a lot in school.
Right. Yeah, I probably would have gotten bullied, but I was ornery, I think.
Nice.
Again, the rules don't apply to me. They only apply to everybody else.
Yeah, because I would back then I would never think about ditching a school trip. I'd be too scared. I'd be too scared too.
Yeah, no, I'm skipping school as often as I can. Actually, matter of fact, my days missed equaled my GPA. So the days I'd missed high school total was about the same as I graduated high school with. And it was a lot of days missed and a pretty low GPA.
Okay, I was like you missed 4 days, you got 4.0. Like,
yeah, no. Let's go the other direction. I think I graduated with like a 2.2 or something. And I think I missed out of the entirety of high school like 200 and something days.
Wow.
And which is fine because that just wasn't. I don't.
Yeah. I only ever skipped 1 day of school. Really, I missed a lot because I was sick a lot. I was very bad immune system back then, so I missed a lot of school by sick days. But I only ever skipped 1 day on purpose.
Yeah, here I am, like, we're in our 40s, and we're like, hey, Ma, guess what we used to do? Not you so much, but me, skipping school and going to Waffle House was really my hang back then.
Yeah, in high school, I think that just got built when we were in high school. The Waffle House was just built.
Yeah, but I always went to the Inglewood one. I never hung out in Vandalia. You got to be smart. If you're going to break the rules, you got to break the rules not in your own backyard. You totally got to go to somebody else's backyard. And then which brings me to Nashville area because I left. I graduated, joined the Air Force, did that for 20 years, and retired. And now I play guitar and sing rockabilly music full time, which is a lot of fun.
So, did you ever do any music while you're in the Air Force, like having like an Air Force band or anything like that?
No, I did. Actually, I got accepted into the. I got it. So the funny story. I was a tactical air control party guy in the Air Force, and we used to tell airplanes where to drop bombs on bad guys. I tried to get into the Air Force band to play guitar, but apparently there was like this war on terror thing that was going on, and the Air Force was like, listen, you can play guitar in your own time, but we kind of need you to go do your real job. So I never got into the Air Force band. I had bands while I was in. Matter of fact, my last couple of years in Texas, I was in a regionally touring band. We played, Dallas and Houston and San Antonio and Austin and that whole area. We never went out west toward El Paso. I don't know why anybody would. But everywhere, in between from, down to Corpus up to Dallas. And we just kind of travel that area, playing music, which Texas is kind of big. So that's probably like playing, northern Georgia all the way up to like Cleveland or something. And all the way out to the ocean because Texas is big. Everything is bigger in Texas but the mountains.
So you guys never got to perform for the OSU then, or USO, whatever it's called?
No. I saw a couple of USO bands when I was in Korea. I felt bad for those cats. Those guys, they're they kind of they show up, and you play these venues here too. You go out to these places. It's a bunch of Army dudes. Because I live kind of close to Fort Campbell as well, which is in the northern part of Tennessee. So you go out to these places, and these Army dudes, all they want to do is hang out with their buddies and drink a little bit and hang out. Well, so there you are on stage, trying to like rock this town or something, and Army guys looking at you like, well, that's really cool, but I'm going to go get drunk now. Well, back in my Korea days, you get these guys that show up, and they look like old rockers from the 80s and this was in the 2000s. These guys, like, there's just these old rocker dudes, hard rock guys, they probably took their makeup and leather pants off before they got on the airplane. And they came over and they tried real hard, but we just really weren't into it. And then you get the bigger names on the USO tour. So I think it was like Charlie Daniels. His band came out there one year to Korea right before I got there. I saw Taylor Hawkins in Iraq from, the Foo Fighters. So he had his own band, and his own band just kind of came out and they played a few shows. And I kind of stood kind of far away and watched it. We had the dude from the Spin Doctors. Do you remember those guys?
I think they sound familiar.
What's that?
I think they sound familiar.
The Spin Doctors, Little Miss Can't Be Wrong and all that. I'm going to turn this up. Maybe it'll. There, that's probably better. Yeah, so
closer.
Nice. Yes, I can hear you gooder. So the Spin Doctors show up, and it's just the lead singer from the Spin Doctors doing like his solo USO bit tour, and it was interesting.
So they really care about any music any shows or performers? They just like they didn't care. Nobody cared really at all about the bands performing.
No, there was one group when we were in Iraq, and I'm sure that Jared probably remembers it when he was out there too, but we were out there at the same time. And it was an Army band, and it was called the Four Horsemen of the Iracalypse. The Four Horsemen of the Iracalypse. And these dudes were awesome. There was 4 dudes, and they were playing like modern metal, djenty sort of style. They were tight. They nailed it. They were so good, and they were loud. And the next day we started to take rockets consistently. So I don't think the Iraqis appreciated the Four Horsemen of the Iraqalypse nearly as much as all of us did. They had a really big crowd.
It's like, shut him up.
Yeah, they're like, oh God, it's this Satan is coming out of this thing, But it was cool. I mean, they were really good. I mean, yeah, the Taylor Hawkins band was really good too. I just wasn't into what he was doing. Yeah. And so, but away from that, when you get into actually getting into places where you don't have a captive audience and people start to show up because they want to hear what you're doing.
Because they want to be there and not because they have to be there.
Yeah. Nobody really wants mandatory fun ever.
Like, go recess time, go outside and play.
Yeah. No, but and it happens here too. So you'll get, you play really close to Fort Campbell, and you'll get like one or two dudes in the crowd that go to those venues to hear you do what you do. And then, or you'll go to like Nashville. Now, I haven't played on Broadway, and I'm not really sure if my style of music would really go well on Broadway.
Who knows? Who knows until you try? You never know. Rockabilly, the musical.
Yeah, the musical. Yeah, I don't have enough hair to be a. They have to hire somebody. No, but if you're on Broadway and you're playing pop country or old country, then you'll probably knock it out of the park. But if you're on Broadway and you're playing any of the songs that I write, or if you're playing, I don't know, just some old Elvis tunes or something, but more amped up, it kind of loses the crowd unless it's like the Nashville, the Nashville Boogie Weekender. So that's coming up soon. I think I'm in a different gig somewhere else during that one. I didn't get invited.
So you said your own songs. Like, can we? Like, what one of the songs have you written? What's an all original Brady Adams song?
Okay, yeah, I'll play you one. Let's see. Let's do a song I wrote about. So back in, I lived in Georgia, and I had a family heirloom car. And I was driving this car one day, and I wrote a song about Ford Avenue because Henry Ford used to live on Ford Avenue. Well, I wrote the song about this car burning up on Ford Avenue. Well, a couple of weeks later, the car actually did burn up on Ford Avenue.
So you're psychic.
Yeah. And then I wrote another song about something. I don't remember. And that one came true. And then I just released an album in December, and the title track, or not the title, but like the main track on the album was called Atomic Bomb. I feel really bad for, Russia and the Ukrainians, and that really sucks. And I feel partially responsible for writing a song called Atomic Bomb. And I'm not making light of it. It's just one of those things that happens. Like, you're like, oh, I'm going to write a song about this. And then it happens in the news.
Well, you wrote a song called Putin Invades Russia? I mean, Putin Invades Ukraine or something? Yeah,
well, I mean, its song's called Atomic Bomb, and it's about a guy, anyway. You'd have to go listen to it. But here's a little number. My Ford Died. That's what this one's called. Was a hot rod track with a slow boat out, and it happened late one Georgia night. You had a Chevy in the county and a few boat parts and a couple rat rods that were simple cars. On the way to the starting line, there was a fun and sound, then a warning light right there where traffic gets bad. Smoking started to fill up the cab. My Ford died on his avenue. Henry me pissed him, he only knew. I shed a tear when that car went too soon. My Ford died on his avenue. Pretty little things in a flag and lace to tee up the start of this street race. What's missing most in this car drag with that blue patch no full four flat head. Push it off into the ditch. Drivers are honking, mayonnaise missed. Thoughts on hospitality kick in. Got no help in the intersection. My Ford died on his avenue. Henry B. Pinston, he only knew. I shed a tear when that car went too soon. My Ford died on his avenue. Drive into a ditch. Drivers are honking, mayonnaise missing. Thoughts of hospitality kicking. Got no help in the intersection. Happy days, a couple of surprise when the car rolled over and landed on the side. Bouncing around like a funeral scene. It was a fitting end in that hot rod machine. My Ford died on his avenue. My friend in Piston, he only knew. I shed a tear when that car went too soon. My Ford died on his avenue. Thanks. I may or may not have forgotten some words there. It's been a while. I've been.
So is that like a new song you've written, or one of your original songs?
No, that was an original song from quite a while ago. I wrote that one in Georgia. I could play a new one in a minute if you want me to. And I've got a few numbers that I'm working on for the next album, and then some cool instrumentals. I'm not sure I'm going to release instrumentals though.
So are you like a you a solo performer, or you have a band around you?
It depends on the venue. So most of the time, what I do, I sit right here in this chair in this studio with that backdrop around me, and I write all my parts. I'll get, I'll sit down and go, oh, that's a really cool riff. Then you write all your song around it. Then you grab your upright bass and you bang on that for a while, and you sit behind the drum kit and you play some drums. Now on the first album, one of my real good friends from Texas, Rocco Cortez, who I probably still talk to every day. We toured around the state together. He did all the drums and the post-production on the first album. The second album, I did it all by myself because his band, West Creek, was getting really busy, and he was just out doing, his own business, which was cool. So, yeah. So solo guy or a band guy, I think, I hopefully, fingers crossed, the next bass player works out well.
So what instrument do you play? What's your instrument then? Just lead guitar, bass guitar, drums, keys?
No, I mean, I play, on stage, typically, guitar player, singer, unless I fill in as a bass guy. I don't fill in on drums for anybody because I don't know if you know this or not, but you can't quantize live performances on the drums. You actually have to be good. So, and I filled in for some cool folks on the upright down in Savannah. I was filling in for this guy named Anders Thompson. I guess he used to play with some real heavy hitters back in the day. And Anders is an amazing guitar player and a really nice guy, but I had to move. And then I filled in on the upright for a fella named Phil Rocker, who's got a really cool story. Phil came out of Medellin, Colombia, and basically didn't want to get involved in that mess. So he brings his family up to, I think, New Mexico first, and then he went to Austin and just plays rock and roll. And so Phil's a real cool fella. So I played for him for a little bit, and whoever needed a bass player, if somebody needs a bass player, I just go fill in. There was that meme going around for the pandemic, if that one drummer dies, there's going to be about 8 bands that will have to break up because they don't have a drummer. Bass players are kind of the same way too, You just got to find your folks. But me personally, what I learned in Texas Teen the Shine Runners is that, yeah, having an entire band full of your buddies is probably one of the coolest things ever, but not practical, right? If you're the guy and you just hire a bunch of guys or gals to come and fill in when you can get them in, you always can do shows. You just have this whole roster full of folks to be able to play, and it's good.
So did you and your guest off stage ever perform together?
We did. Matter of fact, that's where we met each other. So there's a really cool dude here in town named Blues Dog. And Blues Dog is a Hall of Fame harmonica player for the blues. And so he puts this band together for they do this like charity thing out in out in Ashland City, Tennessee, and it's like this big, multi-band stage festival kind of, and so he needed a guitar player, and I was like, okay, and so he wanted another guitar player, so Dawson, he was like, okay, and then he got a slew of other folks, a mandolin player, and what was that other guy playing? Like some weird instrument. Was it? Did he have a ukulele player or something?
The flying V ukulele.
Oh yeah, it was like a flying V ukulele player. I don't know what it was. It was cool. Blues Dog puts on a show. Blues Dog does not go to just play some music. That guy goes out there and you go watch Blues Dog play, and it's entertainment. It's not,
So do you two want to do a duet right now or something, or he got this off he just in the audience right now?
Yeah, no, I think we're good for now.
Okay,
we'll do it. Maybe we'll get. Here's what we'll do. You guys keep doing this business, and we'll get Dawson to put out his album, and then we'll get Dawson on here.
Awesome.
So we can help promote his album. So what I'm trying to get him to do, because he's a lot younger than I am, and we are, because we're old.
Yeah,
and,
yeah. When I knew I was old, when my classmates I graduated posted the pictures of their grandkids.
Oh yeah, man. Oh dude, I thought about that the other day. What was I doing? I don't remember what I was doing. I was doing something, and I had kids late, but I was thinking back to I was like, oh geez, when my parents were my age, I was out of the house, and well on my way to being married and having kids and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I was Facebook. I'm like, hey, my grandkid was born. Like, we have grandkids now. Oh my god, I'm old now.
Yeah. And it's funny though, because I was talking to somebody about this a while ago. It's so bizarre, right? When you go out and you get on stage and you act a fool, right? And you're just doing whatever, and then you come home and you pet your dog, and you put your kids to bed or whatever. You're like, why are you still up? It's 4 a.m. Or whatever it is you do. You do all these like crazy things, and you come home and now you're a completely different person.
Yeah.
Right? So like your dad or your husband, and your wife is like, well, listen, that project isn't going to do it itself. You need to get up and do that thing. And I'm thinking to myself, like, just did Slash's wife or girlfriend ever say, hey, I know you need to go on tour tomorrow, but those curtains really need hung?
Probably.
You know what I mean?
Unless they were on tour with them, like.
Right. So, I was talking to, because back in the Air Force, the guy I was talking to about this, he goes, yeah, it's so weird, living a double life, because on the road, he's one person, and then he comes home and he's dad. And it hit me, in the Air Force, when I was still in, like I was the Air Force guy at work, right? I had to be that personality. And when you get home, you take that personality off. You get on stage, you're a completely different personality. I mean, you're the same person. So, it's no wonder that people go crazy. So what I've decided to do against better judgment is just be the funny stage guy all the time. And my wife and kids don't like it, but at least I'm not living a double life. That's who it is.
Yeah. So you take your kids on tour with you, family on tour with you, or they stay behind?
No. Wife doesn't like to go to those shows. It's loud. There's either too many people or nobody at all. And then a lot of times, when you're starting out, you don't really play at places where kids can go. My kids have seen a couple of my shows.
Are they a fan of your music, or are they a fan of different kind of music?
Now, kids listen to frequencies these days. They typically don't listen to actual music. And I say that, I mean, I take that back. I don't have a problem with anybody sitting down behind their computer and making beats and melodies with, whatever DAW they want to use, and that's fine. And it carries the words of the song that they've put together. But that's what they like. I personally don't like it. I like to hear real instruments as opposed to, and it's not that it's not real, it's an instrument, right?
Yeah.
It's just not my thing. I want to hear guitar-based music.
From a real guitar bass?
Yeah, guitar-based style, whatever guitar music, that's what I listen to. And they listen
so you don't
to
have
computer-based.
So you don't have any future musicians in your family, like next generation growing up?
No, not even a little bit. Not even at all. That is not a thing they want to do. And yeah, I've tried a lot. I was talking to one of them. I'm like, hey, I just got on the Facebook and this rock star's daughter just bought a new guitar. Kid, do you want one? You're the same age. And she's like, no.
So how old are your kids?
I got a 16, almost 17-year-old and a 12-year-old.
So almost ready to leave and one ready to be a teenager.
Well, they're girls. They're probably not going anywhere. And why would they? They get fed and clothed and cared for here, and we're way nicer than the outside world. So
Yeah, sure. So speaking of kids, is there any Rockabilly kid songs out there?
Well, I mean, if you go back to the early days and you listen to Bill Haley and the Comets Rock Around the Clock, and that was played at sock hops in middle school, if you listen to some of the early Elvis stuff became kid music later. And I think what happens, our kids will wind up listening to eventually a lot of the stuff that we listen to. And so we show it to them. We think it's cool. Eventually there's going to be like, a 420 party in middle school where they're listening to Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg. Come on, that was funny.
Actually, well, I think we had that in my middle school. We had Snoop Dogg's thing in my middle school, so it was already that thing in the early 90s already. So,
well, but they didn't like put it on. Yeah, that was something we were playing.
True.
But yeah, so I think eventually when music catches up to kids and it's beyond that generational gap when it was first created, it becomes it could become a kid's thing, assuming that it's clean enough. I think, I could go back to a lot of like Bill Haley and the Comets songs that they would play for kids all the time now. But back then, you probably wouldn't have played them for kids. They'd have been like, well, that's the rock and roll. Those kids can't hear that.
That's the devil's music.
Yeah. And you know why they call that stuff the devil's music?
Probably the same reason they call the hard rock now devil's music, I guess.
Well, so one of the bits I do when I go into when I'm playing a solo gig, I say, well, I'm going to play you the Devil's music, and I give him the old. Because the Devil was a big jazz fan, Smooth. But no, because you'd go to the juke joint on Saturday night, spend all your money, and then you'd go to church on Sunday, and you didn't have any money because you spent it all at the juke joint on Saturday night. And you can do both. I guarantee you. I go to church on Sunday after playing gigs until like 2 or 3 in the morning on Saturday. Yeah, you can do both. It's okay. You can do that. But yeah, I go out to right before we play Cowboys from Hell, like a rockabilly version of Cowboys from Hell. I always hit him with the Devil's music.
So what is one? You said you wrote a newer song. What's one of your newer classics that you're writing right now?
Well, so this one isn't written all the way yet. It's
so a little sneak peek then.
Yeah, a little bit. I'll give you all the way up to maybe like the first verse or something. It's pretty quick. Well, I'm not outside of shoveling shit. I'm fixing holes in a barn I built. There's always something that needs doing. We got cow and corn and pigs and wheat and cows and pets and eggs and beans. In 20 years I get paid for what I'm sowing. I got those farmer blues, man. I don't know what to do. Farmer blues, hey, how about you? Hang on
Nice.
So that one originally started out as a song called I Can Farm, but I don't like it. And I couldn't quite figure out how to work that in there, so I called it the Farmer Blues.
So have you ever been a farmer?
Yeah. I've got a few acres around me, and we hay a little bit of them, and I get some eggs every day. And, I grow depression on the fields.
you grow depression, like the Great Depression?
Yeah, no, I just get sad, really. I grow dirt. I got dirt out there. Call myself a dirt farmer. I have a tractor around the corner. That's a lot of fun. Now, farming is cool, but it's just not my thing,
Like no time for it.
Yeah, and it's hard.
Yeah,
it's really hard. Like really hard to farm. You get up early and you work until it's dark, and you've got to like bale and cut and hope. You cut down all your hay, and then it's got to dry, and you bale it up, and you get covered in grass. You ever roll in grass? Well, like if you're covered in hay all day, you're just going to be itchy, and life is terrible.
Yeah, I used to like rolling when I was a kid. I used to like rolling down the hill at Taylorsville Dam, that big hill.
Yeah.
We used to do that all the time.
And you get itchy. Imagine doing that all the time every summer.
And if you don't do that stuff, you're not going to eat probably.
Right. Your cows. So if you don't like go get all your hay, then your cows die because you let them starve to death. And if your cows die because you let them starve to death, then you can't like sell them for money.
You can't sell them for meat, or you can't milk them for milk.
Yeah. And then like not only that, but I think the average small farm can like feeds like 600 people a year or something. I don't remember. 600 people a month. There's a number. So yeah, if we don't have farmers, we all die. But I don't want it. It's way too hard.
So if you're you ever thought about actually writing a kid song via rockabilly style, like your own lyrics?
No. I write about like it's a lot of my stuff like lyrically is very simple.
Well, are most kid songs simple?
They are, but I write about if I'm not writing a prophetic song, I'm writing a very real life song. It's a thing that's happened or a thing that I could see happening. In fact, the only songs that I've written that weren't real life things, somebody would, and that eventually came true. They would come up to me and say, "Hey, man, why don't you write a song about this?" And so I write a song about it, and then it comes true. So every song I write is a real thing, a real story. I can't sit down and write, very flowery and beautiful lyrics that are metaphorical in nature. And
so is there any rockabilly Christmas songs out there?
Oh, good Lord. Yeah. Brian Setzer made an entire career off the Brian Setzer Orchestra playing Christmas songs. The Reverend Horton Heat has a Christmas album out. There's Chuck Berry, Run Run Rudolph was a cool song, Christmas song. Tons of them. Yeah, tons of them.
You ever gonna write one of your own Christmas song version?
No, I can't. I thought I started to write, what would I write for a Christmas song? And it just didn't work. I couldn't make it work. A buddy of mine in Texas wrote a song called Christmas in the Drunk Tank. And they released that one a couple of years ago, which was pretty funny. I thought, I was like, oh, that was clever. He stole the only good idea that ever I could have for a Christmas song. So,
well, if you have 5 days, but you can always write a rockabilly St. Patrick's Day song.
I do, and I won't do the whole thing, but you can imagine if you're playing Whiskey in a Jar and you kind of give it that shuffle. All right, here we go. Well, I was going over the Corncarry Mountains with Captain Farrell and the money he was counting. I first produced my pistol, then produced a radio singing, and then never you rock a boat deceiver of my show rain road to die. Whack for my daddy-o, whack for my daddy-o, there's whiskey in the jar. Yeah, there's a St. Patty's Day song that's, rockabilly style. I like to do that one. Sometimes
nice.
When we play out in Savannah on St. Patty's Day, and there was just these huge crowds, and and you get all the good venues out there. Back then, the good venue was the Jinx, and the Jinx closed down, and now it's like, oh man. And I'm sure it's this way across America. Dayton is probably the same way, but when you look at all of the old, like, awesome venues, they're all getting closed down and made into generic Hana. Well, the Jinx in Savannah was no different. Like, you go into the Jinx and it was this dirty place, and they had like biker looking dudes that would man the bar. But guys like Reverend Horton Heat and Sean K. Preston and Southern Culture on the Skids and all these other groups would show up. We would play there often, and we would play there on St. Patty's Day, and it was just wall-to-wall people. And they'd always ask you, the venue, hey, could you play some St. Patty's Day music? Because, all the venues talk like that, and you're like, yeah, I guess. So I had to real quick that, like, afternoon, well, what am I going to do? Well, I better fake this one. So, you just play a rockabilly version of whatever Irish tune you could comes to your mind. The same thing happens during Christmas time. You you get some gig around Christmas, and they're like, "Hey, can you like throw a Christmas song in there?" And so, there's just a few songs, or you'll make up one on the spot. Like I came up with, I don't remember how I did it, but it was, Hank Didn't Do It This Way, Waylon Jennings song. Oh, it's the same old thing. What did I say? Oh, I don't remember. Goodness. Are you sure Santa did it this way? It sure Santa did it this way. Somebody told me when I got to the North Pole, son, you finally got it made. That elf made it here. And we're all sure that you will, but I don't think elves did it this way. Are you sure Pharaoh done it this way? And then, you make up the words as you go, and the audience isn't really paying attention until you change the words enough to where they're like, oh, he's singing about Santa Claus and Elf because he said Will Ferrell, and they put it all together. Cool. And then you make it through that set, and you're.
So all you need now is an Easter. So all you now is to make it a Rockabilly Easter song, and you got the whole Christian holiday all wrapped up in your church going schedule.
Right. Well, what I wanted to do was to write. Nobody's written a Thanksgiving album.
Oh yeah, yes. There's no Thanksgiving Day songs. There's some Halloween songs and there's Christmas songs, but there's barely any Thanksgiving Day songs.
There's this great Halloween song that Daryl Hyam recorded, and I don't remember the name of it. Essentially, it's about this guy who's at his house and a goblin and like a zombie knock on the door, and he answers the door and he kicks the crap out of these kids, and it slowly dawns on him throughout the song that it's Halloween. They weren't zombies So I thought, well, it would be probably funny to write a Thanksgiving album, a real slow number when you get your everybody's done eating and watching football, which I don't watch football, but if you're just a real just to get the real draggy kind of number. Oh, I'm tired.
Yeah, I did that a few years ago. I was the link, but I wrote a 12 Days of Christmas parody called the 12 Days of Thanksgiving.
Oh,
and each day you ate more and more food.
Right. Well, that makes sense because it's Thanksgiving, and it's somebody should write. That's it. Hey, Dawson, we're putting together a Thanksgiving album in a rock and roll style, real rock and roll. I guess. Okay, go back to the very beginning. What is rockabilly versus rock and roll? Well, I would say that once the British invasion hit, it no longer became rock and roll. It was kind of pop, or it was pop rock, or it was hard rock, but it wasn't rock and roll. If I think of rock and roll, I'm thinking Little Richard, Chuck Berry, that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
by the time everybody else came,
we come full circle back to the original talking points.
Yeah. And so that's rock and roll to me, not the hard rock stuff or the modern rock stuff or the pop rock or prog rock or math rock or,
Say math rock?
Math rock? Yeah, you never heard that one?
Is that when you rock out the algebra or something or geometry?
No, that's where you get weird time signatures and strange key changes. It's there's prog, and then you go further because you could have metal, thrash, and then maybe heavy or death or whatever, and then you get up to gent, or it's genty, styles of metal, Scandinavian fjord metal or something. I don't know.
I was about to say there's songs about math now, one is 2.
No, you get those where it's just weird time signatures and strange things. I can't get into it. It's not danceable.
Yeah, I was in Yeah, I was in choir back in school, so I know a little bit of that stuff.
I never really could get into like the classics. It's so boring to me.
So there's no rockabilly Beethoven or rockabilly Mozart.
No, but there's Chuck Berry telling you to roll over Beethoven. Tells Tchaikovsky the news, you know. It doesn't. You got to have the soul of the attitude. It's an attitude thing. It's definitely an attitude thing. Rockabilly is rock and roll and that that whatnots. Because you know a lot of there are obviously some characteristics. There's a certain sound. There's typically a certain chord progression. You know, every style of music has its own nuance, and that's just rock and roll. So, yeah. Other than that, I mean, that's just what I do. I do the rock and roll. I do appreciate other forms of music, and I appreciate the successes that other folks have.
But you're all about the originality, the original father of them all.
I am. Yeah, you gotta, and that would be. I think a lot of folks will say Elvis, and they're probably right. But Carl Perkins to me is the guy. You know, he wrote Blue Suede Shoes, and that's where I made. So when I put this guitar together originally, if you'll see, it's blue in color, right?
Yeah.
And it used to be black because Carl Perkins, his first guitar was that he used to record all that stuff was a Les Paul Gold Top with P90s, and after Blue Suede Shoes became a real big hit, it was his dad painted that gold top blue. And so I thought, well, I'll make a blue guitar, kind of a Carl Perkins tribute guitar. Well, later on, his son painted that same guitar black. Well, I'm not painting this one black because it started out black. And so, it's gone through a bunch of different pickup configurations. It's gone through a bunch of different, parts.
So if Carl was your inspiration, who was his inspiration? Who was
Carl Perkins was taught guitar by a guy named, I think it was, so across the Johnny Cash will say, he used to say it in a song, but out there in Tennessee, on the other side of Tennessee, there was a bunch of cotton farmers. And so the Perkins family were a bunch of really old cotton farmers that lived in Tennessee. And on that farm was this blues player. I think they called him, I think his name was like Uncle John or something. Some black dude that taught Carl Perkins how to play the blues. Because, obviously his family worked out there with those folks. And so he would spend a lot of time on those farms. And that dude taught him how to play. And he taught him what the blues really were. He taught him all about like real blues. And his other influence was Bill Monroe. So Bill Monroe, the bluegrass dudes were on the radio all the time back then. So those are the kind of the influences that Carl Perkins had. And he told his brother, "Hey, I'm going to go play at the Opry one day and be a part of, hey, poor cotton farmer ever going to be on the Grand Ole Opry stage or anywhere at that matter, except for right here on this farm." But, obviously he didn't want to do that. So he learned how to do all those things and heard the rockabilly sound. Elvis had already recorded "That's All Right, Mama" and another number. I don't remember exactly what it was. And I think at that point in time, obviously Rocket 88 and Rock the Joint were both already out. So we're looking at like 54, somewhere around there, 55 maybe. I don't know. I read things and then sometimes I forget them. So, eventually he goes up to like Columbia Records. They turn him down. He went to all these other studios. They turn him down. He goes out to Sun Records in Memphis, and Sun Records picks him up. And he's touring all over the place with all these folks. And then, he writes, his first song was Movie Mag, and it's really more of a country song. And then he's got Blue Suede Shoes, Honey Don't, Everybody's Trying to Be My Baby. Matchbox was sitting in Sun Studios. I guess he was starting to play the original riff from Matchbox, and that one's really cool. The Beatles wind up covering this song, but this song kind of starts out with the. Well, I'm sitting here wondering if the Matchbox will hold my clothes. Yeah, I'm sitting here wondering if the Matchbox will hold my clothes. Ain't got no match, it's got a long way to go. Well, let me be your little dog, till your big dog come. Well, let me be your little dog, till your big dog come. And when that big dog get here, you show what this puppy does. Cause I'm sitting here wondering if a Matchbox will hold my clothes. Yeah, I'm sitting here wondering if a Matchbox will hold my clothes. Ain't got no match, it's got a long way to go. Well, be a old boy, a long way from home. Well, I'm an old boy, a long way from home. I wanna never be happy, 'cause everything I do is wrong. Cause I'm sitting here wondering if the Matchbox will hold my clothes. Yeah, I'm sitting here wondering if a Matchbox will hold my clothes. Ain't got no match, it's got a long way to go. Ain't got no match, it's got a long way to go.
Nice. Yeah. So you only any. You said the blues was his inspiration. Do you know any blues songs?
Yeah, I do. I do this one. So I learned this one from Blues Dog earlier. He was telling me, hey, you should do this song, and you'd like it a lot. Well, they call it Stormy Monday, but Tuesday's just as bad. I said they call it Stormy Monday, but Tuesday just as bad. And Wednesday's even worse. Thursday's such a drag. Oh, well, the eagle flies on Friday, and Saturday go out and play. Well, the eagle flies on Friday, Saturday go out and play. You know, on Sunday go to church, and I get on my knees and pray. And it's about to say, well, the Lord have mercy, have some mercy on me. I say, Lord, have some mercy, have some mercy on me. You got to bring me my baby, someone to hold me. It's the blues, you know.
Nice.
So I do that one often, and it's good. It's good.
Okay,
So now I do have some more folks actually coming in, and can I give you a tour real quick?
Sure.
Because I'm going to give you a tour, and I got to get the studio set up for. I had back-to-back appointments.
Okay.
I get to hang out with you for a while. Now I'm going to spend the rest of the night on this farm recording, like, copper records. Man, these things are going to be aluminum. Get it? Gold records, aluminum records.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Like the basic, like the bronze medal of records.
Yeah. I don't think we're going to get all the way up to bronze.
Platinum.
Or platinum or near that. We're probably going to get up to tin, or what's that, like pot metal stuff that they make like die-cast cars out of? Not
Tin?
that good, because die-cast cars are like really worthy.
Brass, bronze, zinc.
Yeah. And it's not because of a lack of talent or a lack of creativity or a lack of equipment or a lack of desire. Really what it comes down to is a lack of opportunity and money.
So do you think in like, say 10 to 20 years from now, you'll have someone in the future saying that you were their inspiration for becoming a musician?
I've a lot of folks will say, and this one's really important. A lot of folks will come up to you at a show, or they'll come up to you and you can kind of tell as you're playing or you write something, and they tell you, hey, that was a good show and we really dug it. And you see them dancing and they buy your merch. It's a completely different feeling for somebody to come up to you and say, your music changed me. And there's folks that have done that for me. And on a personal level, like not only the music, but them being a person, because in today's modern era, you can reach out to those people and you can stay in contact with them. And then you hear what they create. And it's really inspirational, both, in many facets of life and musically, and just say, well, this guy's out there working really hard. And I know he has bad days, so I'm going to have to get up and work really hard to get through my bad days. But when somebody comes up to you and says, hey, man, your music has actually inspired me to keep going. And in some cases it's, well, at least I had something to listen to, so I didn't, off myself. And you look at that guy and you're like, well, first off, you need to get help. But secondly, I'm humbled. Call me and we'll have a discussion. And because, you value those people. Not only do you value that they got something out of your music, but you value them as people.
Yeah.
And, or you'll get somebody who's like, hey, man, I was kind of, bored, kind of the end of my rope, kind of out to pasture, kind of didn't really care anymore. And then I heard what you were doing, so I decided to pick it up and start doing it as well. And, those folks that tell you that, and then you look at them and you see some of their successes and you're like, well, I don't need platinum records because I made that person's life that much better. And that was really, it's a very, very, very humbling experience for people to tell me that. And then you hold on to those folks and you support what those people are doing.
Pass it on next generation.
Yeah. And hopefully, and they keep going. And then you stay in contact with them, and then they can realize how much of a weirdo you are. And they wind up putting up with your eccentricities because you're a weirdo. And then they understand, like, well, dude, they'll understand me a little bit. Like, this guy's manic and he's weird and he might have it all together, but it's cool. And then, the cycle repeats itself because,
the torch is always passed on to somebody else eventually.
Yeah. And it's good. And those kind of people, right? The ones that will, if you pay attention to them, they're the ones who, your family keeps you straight. Your family keeps you, from going off the deep end or doing, weird, stupid shit that you don't do. When you're a single guy, you can just do anything silly that you want. And a lot of times you do. So your family kind of keeps you on the straight and narrow. But those other folks, well, your family can get you to the straight and narrow, but then somebody gives you a humbling experience and you keep going and doing things. It kind of keeps you focused because you're actually reaching people. And I'm very thankful for it. It's a good time. And that's why you do it. You do it to reach those kind of people. So real quick tour of the studio.
All right.
Let's
Switch
see if we can.
You switch to your phone camera, or you just keep it this on your
Yeah,
webcam?
we'll just adjust a little bit if we can see it good. So we saw the Les Paul. You know what we'll do? I think I'm willing to bet we can do this. All right. So, hey, look what. So here's what we do. Here's where the magic happens.
All right.
We're going to get some little behind the scenes. This is the control seat. As you can see, the computer is no longer there. It's in my hands.
Yeah, so you have like a laptop.
Yep, we throw a laptop up there. We get a couple of different types of studio monitors. There's one behind the chair, one over there. Here's the pedal board. And so typically what we do is, or I do, or when anybody else comes in and records, I'll sit behind the engineer chair and then they can sit over here and do all their work. So I don't have anything really mic'd up, but we got the kit over in the corner. Everything is sort of acoustically treated there so that it doesn't reverb when you stand in now you'll hear me reverbing because of the drums have natural reverb on them, but there's no, when you're drumming, you don't get any of that. And then we got our closet isolated in here with the amp closet with all the amp stuff. It's probably super tough to see. Aside from that, man, you don't need anything. You just get out there and make it on your DAW, and you get a good DAW and get a good interface and knock it out.
Awesome. All right, so before we go, anybody have any questions they want to ask? Anybody, before we have to go, anybody have any questions in chat that you want to ask him about anything? Wait for a few minutes while we see if anybody has any questions. All right. 2-minute call. 2-minute call.
Well, maybe I blew them away. They didn't want to hear it. We didn't want the big claps. We just wanted the snaps like we were artists.
Nice. So what are your future plans then
Well, my future plans are to just keep grinding. We play music and make albums and do shows and continue doing those things until we don't do them anymore, until they're not fun, until they're not worthwhile. And that's really, the foundation of it. You just continue to doing it until it's not fulfilling. Right now, it's very much still fulfilling. So I'm still being fulfilled by playing.
All right.
And that's it, really.
Cool. Well, do you have any catchphrases you want to say before we end this? Like, you have a catchphrase or anything, a Rockabilly catchphrase or anything like that to end stuff on?
No, just thank you. Good night.
Nice.
It was amazing talking to you. I appreciated it. Thank you.
No problem. As I always say, never stop learning and enjoy the randomness. I'll see you next time. Bye.